Hello YouTube, welcome back to a Halloween month. We are here the 13th. It's not a Friday, unfortunately. I don't think this video is going to come out the 13th either, but we are going to be talking about the 2019 American supernatural horror film written and directed by Gary Doberman. So they kind of gave the directing duties to him in his directorial debut from a story by Doberman and James Wan, who also served as producer with Peter Safran. We have Annabelle Comes Home. Here we go, the way to close out the Annabelle trilogy here. And after watching Creation and then the first Annabelle, again, we kind of watched it in sequential order. I went into this one a little skeptical, but honestly kind of hopeful. Like, how could it not be better than the 2014 movie? I think that's kind of the only good thing about Annabelle 2014 not being the greatest movie, is that this one really couldn't fail, and it was going to impress me in some sense. I mean, that movie wasn't awful, but it definitely wasn't great either, so I hit play on this one thinking, come on, surprise me, give me something. And right away, I think the opening scene with the Warrens driving Annabelle home, that hooked me in right away. It was a very engaging movie. We'll get again into the nitty gritty. I'm just kind of giving you guys an intro here, and I love when the Warrens show up in these movies. They just bring this sense of legitimacy and calm to all of the supernatural chaos. They're amazing characters. They're kind of the backbone of the Conjuring universe, and every time Ed and Lorraine Warren are on screen, it feels like we're kind of in the Conjuring universe. Like, it feels true to form for this franchise. Seeing them seal Annabelle in that glass case, I think that was a really good way to start things, and it really raised the stakes. Now, I'll admit, setting the whole movie inside the Warrens' house sounded like a risky move. Like, how scary can a suburban home really be when we've already seen haunted farms, orphanages, demon cults, all these things? But you know what? I think they actually pulled it off well. The tension stays tight, the atmosphere is thick, and for such a confined space, it still feels big and alive, and I'm going to explain why in this video. So kind of getting into the premise here, I know I missed some stuff because obviously the Warrens are a big part of the actual Conjuring movies and not as much the Annabelle movies, but this time around, the Warrens head out on another case, leaving their daughter Judy at home with her babysitter Mary Ellen, and Mary Ellen's friend Daniela obviously isn't supposed to be there. She just kind of comes over to accompany Mary Ellen while she's babysitting, so there's that kind of whole thing. Daniela, of course, decides to go snooping where she shouldn't, the Warren artifact room, and accidentally unlocks Annabelle's case. That's kind of the whole setup. And once that happens, every cursed object in the house decides to just party, come out, and fucking scare the shit out of everyone. It sounds kind of silly on paper, but honestly it works. And again, we will get into the specifics, but I'm just kind of bringing up generalities right now. I really liked the change of perspective here, though. Following Judy as the main character, she's the daughter. You're seeing the supernatural world through a kid who grew up in it, and I think that's a cool angle that sets it apart from the other Annabelle movies. It's also just a fun movie, just the whole premise and just how everything progresses and how the pacing works. Like, this is easily the most festive movie in the series in terms of watching it during Halloween season. If it was Halloween and I had to pick one Annabelle movie, this would be the one to watch. This one feels the most like Halloween. The lighting, the pacing, the energy, it's got that October vibe where you can grab some snacks, dim the lights, and just enjoy the ride. Sure, it gets serious at times, but for the most part, this movie leans into being a good time instead of a total downer, instead of just a satanic cult thing, instead of just pure evil. It has fun while doing it, and I think franchises like Scream do that really well, and that's kind of what this reminds me of. Getting into the good, here's what the movie gets right, and honestly, there's a lot of things that this movie does right. This will be overwhelming compared to the other sections of this video. First off, I just think the cursed objects, like the whole artifact room, the whole concept, and we know this has been a thing, like this is a staple for the Warrens. None of them are particularly terrifying, but they're creative as hell. Like the backstory, the lore, the timepieces of it. You've got the ferryman, the bride, the samurai armor, the werewolf, all of them popping up in little bursts throughout the movie. I think that's a really dope flavor. It's kind of like walking through a haunted house, and when you say haunted house film, this kind of defines that, because it's literally a haunted house with all these old ass artifacts stowed away in this room, and they finally come out to play. Not knowing what's going to jump at you next, you never know. Will it be the samurai? Will it be the bride? Will it be the ferryman? Will the mourner's bracelet come to play? There's a lot of interesting dynamics, a lot of interesting history. Some of it's based on real stuff, I think, some of it's not, but that is awesome. That alone gives this movie such replay value. I think it's just a blast to experience, and maybe if you keep rewatching it, you can kind of pick up on some new lore over time, and it's just filled with it. I love it. Annabelle herself is one of the artifacts, and she really isn't a star this time, more like kind of the puppet master pulling the strings in the background, and honestly, that's fine. I think that's a really cool angle. She's the reason all of this is happening, obviously. Like, she is the main component, and her influence carries the film even when she's not front and center. If she didn't get out of the glass, obviously none of these artifacts would have came to fruition. And again, let me just say, I had a lot of fun with this movie, like legit fun. It's creepy, but it's not a miserable watch. It is a lot of fun. They mix it in. The tension when those coin men show up, I was actually nervous. That was one of the craziest. It's just slow burn dread. It's just straight anticipation for a jump scare, and that hasn't been done super effectively since Creation, since we watched that. The original film really really didn't do that. Now, yeah, some moments are goofy, like Bob outside with his guitar trying to serenade the girls. That whole thing was kind of awkward, and I could put Bob in the bad, but he's not an overwhelmingly bad, but he is kind of an awkward guy, I will say. And obviously the quick romance between him and Mary Ellen was forced, but whatever. Kind of gave a little break between the scares, though. I do think there is some functionality to that with Bob kind of coming in and being the side character. They kind of tease him at the beginning when he's like working with his dad in the grocery store, and they come by and Daniel is like, she likes you, and he like decides to make a move on her and whatever. It seemed kind of forced, it seemed kind of lovey-dovey, seemed kind of fairy tale NPC-ish. Speaking of Mary Ellen, though, that is easily my favorite character. I think she's the strongest point in this movie. Cool, calm, brave, the babysitter you'd actually want in a horror movie. A lot of really cool setups here, like the babysitter thing and Mary Ellen just being that good of a character, the artifacts. It just all comes together really well. I think she handles things way better than most adults in this universe, and she never really makes some unrealistically stupid decisions either, so that's a plus. I think Daniela's story was great too. Now the actual characters kind of but her connection to her dad through the mourner's bracelet was surprisingly emotional, I will say. It turned what could have been just a dumb she opened the wrong door move into something meaningful. You actually understand why she made that mistake, because she's like, I can connect with the spirits through this, so I'm going to use this as kind of a vessel. And that made sense. It'd be one thing if she had no connection to her dad and this whole traumatic thing didn't happen and she just went in the artifact room based on like pure fandom of the Warrens. That would be different, but there's actually something connecting together with that. And I'll be real, I liked the happy ending. It seemed a little cheesy when I first watched it, but looking back on it, I think the birthday party scene, again, a little cheesy, but it's nice seeing one of these movies wrap up with some light instead of total despair and like anticipation for the next film and kind of teasing it. And I think the fact that this is the third movie in the franchise is perfect for that. So getting into the bad now, there isn't a ton I actually disliked here, but a few things are kind of worth mentioning. These videos are not going to be long. It is a very, very straightforward movie. I think it's a little formulaic. I mean, it follows the grain. You can kind of feel the rhythm of when the scares are coming. A lot of stuff is pretty predictable. Now, when it's going to happen is a whole nother thing with a lot of like the haunted house attractions, but that doesn't really hurt it. I think it's familiar in a good way. I think it's formulaic in a good way. It doesn't try to do too much. It doesn't do too little. It throws other kind of storylines in there, which we kind of mentioned with the good before, and the fact that all of those are good is amazing. And the ghosts and artifacts never really overcrowd the story. You still feel like there is room. The scares don't overcrowd it. The humor, it's not overwhelmingly anything. I think everything just kind of meshes together really well. I do think Annabelle could have been a little more involved. Again, she is the catalyst. Like, she is kind of the puppet master. She's the mastermind. Even though she's an inanimate object, she's what they call a conduit for all this evil stuff. And when she's released, obviously all hell is going to break loose, literally. But I think like one or two more signature moments, instead of her purely being the catalyst, I think that would have been a little more beneficial for this. I think really the bad is about like the neglect of some of the other characters in sacrifice for like the trio of the girls we got, the haunted things. But I also wish Ed and Lorraine were in a bit more. They framed the story nicely. I like that they're the reason this is here, like their house and all that stuff, but I kind of missed their presence throughout the movie. I really liked kind of the beginning sequences where they have Annabelle in the back of the car, they're driving around, it's like a fucking graveyard. Of course their car just breaks down in a graveyard, because why wouldn't Annabelle be a piece of shit like that? Still, it's obviously cool seeing the kids hold their own for once instead of the adults saving the day, instead of like the main characters of this universe carrying the film. I think that's great, but it would have been nice if like maybe they peeked their head in, or maybe they like checked on things and like they investigated or something. It was all fine and then they went away and it came back. I don't know. Pacing wise, it's pretty tight. Maybe too many scares back to back at times, but it never drags or loses steam. There's nothing really overwhelmingly bad about the movie that's just purely bad. I do think there's just a few nitpicky kind of plot things, kind of writing choices that were kind of whatever. Getting into the okay, as you guys know, this is the section that it's like, well, it's kind of there, it's kind of just whatever. And I will first say kind of just the aesthetic and the look of this movie. I mean, it fits it perfectly. It does exactly what it needs to do, looks how it needs to. You get the dark hallways, you get the creepy glow, which honestly you didn't really get in the other Annabelle movies, which leads me to think that that adds a lot of fun to it, and maybe that could have been a good aspect. You get the flickering lamps, you get all of this stuff. The artifact room is awesome, easily one of the most interesting horror sets in the franchise. Every corner feels cursed. You walk in that room and you can feel the tension. Like, the looks of it all is great, and I do kind of like how the house is fittingly just creepy as shit, because these are like paranormal experts. I think there's kind of some humor in that, and overall the humor's whatever. The sound design and music was really good. I could have debatably put that in the good, but I just didn't see it as a significant enough of a thing to mention here. There's kind of like low looming hums before scares. It really put you on edge. I think the sound design is a lot more effective here, and this movie is just overall just more well done than the 2014 movie. I don't really like comparing others in the franchise, but if we're holding a standard, I think Annabelle Creation really started that standard, and this movie continued it. And is this better than that movie? I will get into that soon. The Warrens' house just feels creepy even when nothing's happening. Too, obviously you walk around and you see this weird ass wallpaper on the walls, you see weird ass old school ass furniture. Well, obviously the aesthetic is like old, but like it's really like eerily old, which I guess is kind of like the nature of setting the story back then. The black demon guy, whatever you call him, could have been better. I don't know, the movement looked kind of rough in a few shots. Just kind of getting into him. He deserved more screen time, but overall visually I think the movie nails it, and they kind of make up with the artifacts. But I will say the Black Devil was kind of like the good part of the original Annabelle, and for them to kind of neglect him here, it's kind of whatever. The jump scares mostly land, a couple are predictable, but a few genuinely hit. Again, the coin men scene, I think that is the scariest scene, not in the entire franchise, because I like the one from Annabelle 2014 where she's like running through the door and then she gets in there and she like grows up and like runs at her again. That's scary, and there's a few scenes from Creation, but this one is definitely up there. The coin scenes were great. Top tier tension. I think the emotional stuff too is pretty good. Subtle but very effective. Daniela and her dad, Judy facing bullying at school, even that little redemption at the birthday party. It adds heart. It's not deep, but it gives everything purpose. And just as far as wrapping up the trilogy, I think it's fine. I think just as that, it feels satisfying. It's got closure, but also just enough mystery to keep Annabelle floating around in the background of this universe. And I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up again somewhere down the line. I think they were hinting at doing a fourth movie, which I actually wouldn't mind based on how this movie ended, because I feel like it wrapped up a little too neatly for her to just never be around again. I know like the Nun and La Llorona are in this universe and they might have had her. There's a few other Conjuring movies I still need to watch. There's one that actually just dropped this year. Maybe she's in that. I don't know. Try not to spoil it for me in the comments. We'll have to see. All right, getting into the review, pull up the tier list. Yeah, I'm gonna say it right now. Annabelle Comes Home ended up being my favorite of the three. Creation is probably the better just film as a standalone, but this one's the one I'd actually rewatch. This is the most enjoyable of the franchise. Again, the most fun, the most atmospheric, the one that fully embraces being a Halloween movie. And I know that's not supposed to be the standard for these because they didn't make these for Halloween. None of the movies actually take place on Halloween. It doesn't follow the festivities, but in terms of just the vibe we're in now in October, this is my favorite one right now. That might change to Creation down the line. Surely never going to be the 2014, but still. It's spooky without being depressing, packed with cool haunted moments, and just a really entertaining ride. Again, I had so much fun with this movie, and if you wanted me to give you one word to describe this thing, it would be fun. This is one of those horror movies where you can kick back, turn off the lights, and just enjoy kind of being creeped out. It's not so like malicious either. It's not so evil that it's like creepy and not having fun. It's creepy and having fun, and I think those are some of the better types of horror films. For me, I think Annabelle Comes Home alarmingly amazing. I'm just gonna go ahead, give it an 8.1 out of 10. So there you have it. I think it's a great cap to the trilogy and proof that the doll still has life in her, even if she's locked behind the glass. There's a lot of things that led to that. Again, I think it's a really amazing movie. Is there really much else to say? Not really. I think that is going to do it for the video. So with that being said, I'm out, guys. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. GZTV. The Nun is coming up next. That'll be the next Halloween movie to watch. We're actually making a really good time because we have a little under 3 weeks left and we only have like 3 or 4 more movies in this franchise that I want to cover. And if we have time, as a bonus, I will be watching some of the Insidious films as well. So it's cool to kind of cover some of that ground. If it gets to the end of the month and I'm like halfway through the Insidious franchise, I will go ahead and finish it. But there you have it. Follow the socials, do that stuff. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. We're good.